Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k 8th edition reveal video. Today we'll be looking at close combat weapons. This should be a pretty short article today, so let's just get straight down to it. So we've seen a lot about shooting in all these 8th edition reveals, but there has been a few hints to how devastating close combat is going to be, and we've also seen that first turn charges are definitely going to be a go-to tactic for a lot of assault armies. But now we get to see what kind of classic weapons people are going to be using. For the most part, I reckon you guys would have been able to predict this, but there's a couple of things in here that actually took me by surprise. So, number one, as we all know, the AP system has changed quite a lot. So I know this is like I'm starting at basics, but bear with me. So we used to have the AP system of, if you've got AP3, you ignore armor saves of 3 or better. Now we've got these armor saves modifiers, and it doesn't actually directly translate over. It's quite interesting because you would expect the power axe to, the power axe currently has the best AP, but in the new system it doesn't have the best AP. So let's actually take a look at the 3 classic power weapons first. So that's the power axe, the power maul, and the power sword. So the power axe is strength +1, AP -2, damage 1. There's no special rules about it being unwieldy. That's the first change you've got to notice. That must be, obviously we've not got the initiative stat anymore, so they've realised there's no point in having it be weak to initiative. You don't have a debuff to initiative, so they've just got rid of that now. So power axes swing as normal now, no disadvantage to that. Power mauls are kind of the most obviously translated over. They give you +2 strength and -1 AP, damage 1. So whilst power axes have changed slightly, power mauls are pretty much exactly how they were in 7th edition. So that's good. That's a good standard, a good sort of control mechanism. That's the reference point we have. So power mauls are strength 2, AP -1. I actually really like that, and I think power mauls could be really, really good for the guard. The reason I mean that is because at least now your power maul will always be damaging your opponent's armor. He's always going to have that -1. And for guard, the biggest thing we have in close combat is struggling to wound. A lot of the time we have to wound on 5s. Now in the new system, we are going to be wounding pretty much all infantry on 5s. So that's good. Because obviously the new system, how you wound. It's only toughness 6 creatures we're going to be struggling to wound with. So, but the power maul would make our base strength 10, because we do strength 3 +2 strength 5. Strength 5. What I meant by the strength 10 is that means we will be wounding everything but toughness 10 creatures on 5s. So apologies for that little bit of confusion there, guys. So power maul will make it strength 5, which means everything that's up to strength 9 will be wounding on 5. So it's only really tough creatures like toughness 10 creatures that we'll be struggling against. Now, interestingly, the power sword is the one that has changed in the most significant way. So the power sword is strength user as currently, but now AP -3. So it's gone from having, the power sword's gone from being the middle of the road weapon to actually really, really potent. AP -3 is really, really good. And what we've got, that actually makes it really, really potent for the guard. Because, with the new to wound system, anything that's toughness 5, we're still wounding that on 5+. Which means power swords have gained a whole new bracket of usability. Yeah, we're still going to struggle to wound anything above toughness 3. Let's not deny that. Above, anything toughness 4, toughness 5, We're going to be struggling to wound just because we'll need that 5+. But on the flip side, it now also means that it's no longer the poor choice to take the power sword, because toughness 5 things you'll still have a pretty good shot against. I mean, what I'm getting at here is one of the sort of biggest problems that Guard had in the current edition was tough close combat units that we struggle to grind through. So when 6th and 7th edition first dropped, it was Nurgle bikers. You know, it was Nurgle bikers, or it was regular bikers, sorry. You know, and all those grav bikes, and in sort of late 7th edition, it was grav bikes on grav bikers. So, you know, because grav bikers would grab the shit out of our vehicles, then just slam into our frontline infantry, and we'd struggle to grind through them. So we had to take things like power fists, we had to take things like power axes to give us a chance of grinding through them. But not so much anymore. Now we can take, if we're facing off against a grav bike, a White Scar grav bikes, they were the most competitive bikes, weren't they, guys? White Scar grav bikes. We're facing off against those. It's still perfectly okay to take the power sword, but there's no difference really between taking the power sword and the power axe. In fact, you want to be taking the power sword, because the power axe, it gives you only +1 strength, so you'll be strength 4, which means you'll be wounding on 5s. The power sword, you're only strength 3, but again, they're only toughness 5, so you'll be wounding on 5s again with the new system. So against all those, if you know you're going to be facing grav biker armies, the power sword is really what you want. It's only if you know you're going to be facing much tougher opponents, like maybe Nidzilla spam. If you're going to be facing lots and lots of monstrous creatures, you want the power axe, just because the power axe will give you that insurance all the way up to toughness 8 for wounding on 5+, because it'll make you strength 4, and obviously you can wound anything that's toughness 5, 6 or 7 on a 5+ with the new system for wounding. So I know this is like I've gone on a bit of a roundabout system, but what I'm trying to get up here is that it's not obvious which is the go-to power weapon now. I think Games Workshop has tried to make it look like you can pretty much take whatever you want. I think that's what they're going for. You know, take what you want, but they've definitely, the one thing, if you haven't really been following my bimbling sort of narrative, if there's one thing you want to take away from this whole bit, it's power swords are now back in the game, guys. That's the important bit. Power swords are now back in the game. So all those power sword commissars, all those Imperial Guard characters that you built with the power sword and then were like, crap, these are not very good in 7th edition. They're going to be pretty good in 8th. So there you go. But that's not even the main news. That was just like the regular Bimble news. Let's actually take a look at the main news, which is the Humble Chainsword finally gets a boost. So for many, many editions, the Chainsword has been nothing but a close combat weapon. For many editions, people have said, the Chainsword looks like a fucking beastie weapon. Why can't it be represented as a fucking beastie weapon in the tabletop? And finally, I mean, back in the day, and I'm talking maybe 2nd edition, maybe Rogue Trader, a long, long time ago, back in the day, the Chainsword used to be -1 to your armor save. Maybe even rending. I can't remember. It was before I played the game consistently and professionally. It was when I was a young whippersnapper just pushing around my, space orc army. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. So now the Chainsword is pretty good, actually. It's a very simple buff. I'm not going to waffle on about it. If you have a Chainsword, you get +1 attack. End of discussion. So if you're a Guard Sergeant, you have 2 attacks base. Assuming you don't get +1 attack for pistol and close combat weapon, you'll still get +1 attack because you'll have a Chainsword. Now, it's a pretty interesting buff. It's meant to sort of represent the fact that the Chainsword is just good for just slashing. It's not an elegant weapon. You just hack and hack and hack and hack, and you just go nuts with it. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know if there was any other way they could have represented it. I mean, they couldn't have had it as AP -1, because then it would have been crossing over into power weapon territory. Power weapon territory. Maybe they could have had it as something really basic, like any rolls 6 to wound are AP -1. Maybe. Because it's kind of meant to be a weapon that you grind through armor with. You know, it's kind of meant to be, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to get into this too much. The chainsword has a buff now to separate it from regular weapons. That is good. So all you Catachan players out there who build your sergeants with just a big knife, you guys are going to be a little bit upset about this, because you won't be, whilst all my Acadian sergeants are going to be there laughing at you, because they'll be getting +1 attack. The only consolation I can offer you Catachan players is maybe we'll have to pay a point for the chainsword now. Maybe it won't be free. Because the reason I don't think it will be a free weapon is because it will screw over certain armies, like Tyranids and Orcs. Now, Tyranids are going to be really powerful in the 8th edition. I'm going to do the Tyranid reveal in the next couple of days. Tyranids are going to be really powerful in 8th edition. But it is slightly unfair if all the armies that have chainswords just as models will just get them for free. I think you'll end up having to pay a point for them. Because it's orcs, which are dedicated to close combat army, don't even get any chain weapons as far as I'm aware. They just get choppers. So anyway, not going too much into it. Chainsword's pretty good. Might have to pay a point. If that's the case, I don't know what I'm going to do about all my chainswords, because I don't really want to pay a point for them. If I've stopped paying for chainswords, I really hope I can just have the option to take a lasgun on my sergeants again. Honestly, if I can just have lasguns on my sergeants, I just won't bother with my chainsaw sergeants anymore, because I don't really want to pay a point for something I'm not going to use. Now, last thing we're going to talk about is second to last thing, is the Power Fist. Power Fist is very interesting. It's interesting because we no longer have the initiative stat. So that means that the Power Fist will no longer be striking last. That's gone. So that's a huge buff for Power Fists. Power Fists no longer strike last. If you charge with the Power Fist, you're going first with the Power Fist. And if you activate first with the Power Fist, you go with the Power Fist. So for many editions, we've been used to this idea of Power Fist going last. Not so much anymore, guys. So many of you will be cracking out the Power Fist, I can tell. But let's take a look at what it actually does and what it means for the guard. And I'll try and keep this brief. It's got the standard strength ×2. So that is good. And it's got AP -3, which is pretty good. It's the same as a sword, though. Same as a sword. Its damage is D3. Oh, pardon me. So what that means is for every wound, every wound that you get, you actually do D3 wounds, which is really good. That's really good. That means you can, Power Fist, you can just smash one of those new Primaire Marines on his face straight away. But the disadvantage of the Power Fist now, to represent it being unwieldy, is you are on -1 to hit. Now for armies like Space Marines, that's not such a big deal, because Space Marines universally will have 3+ to hit across the board. So Space Marines will be hitting on 4+ with a Power Fist, so that's fine, for Space Marines. But for Guard, that could be tricky. Now currently the unit that I take Power Fists on the most are my Commissars, with the occasional officer getting one if I'm feeling generous. But 99.99% of the time, I'm taking Power Fists on my Commissars. I really hope that Commissars still hit on a 3+, or are the equivalent of weapon skill 4, which would be hitting on a 3+. Because if I'm having to hit on a 5+ with my power fists, I'm just not going to take them. Which is a shame, because I love power fists. I think they're a really good weapon. So that's the first thing to watch out for, guys. Are we going to be hitting on a 4+ or a 3+? If we're hitting on a 4+ with them, then it's business as usual, because most of the time in the last edition, we were hitting on a 4+ anyway, against all those Space Marine armies. It was only against like Tau Fire Warriors or other guardsmen that we were, or some of the smaller nids that we were hitting on a 3+ with our power fist. So if we hit on a 3+ with a commissar and with a power fist it's -1, we hit on a 4+, I'm fine with that. However, the strength ×2 is kind of an issue for me, because back in the day, you took a power fist to guarantee yourself that 2+ to wound against a Space Marine as a guard player. Now again, Space Marines will still be doing that. Space Marines will be strength 8, so they'll be wounding other Space Marines and pretty much any other infantry on a 2+. Not anymore with the guard. Guardsmen now, with a power fist, only wound Space Marines on a 3+, because our strength is not double their toughness. So that is a huge nerf. It reduces the amount of wounds we're going to be doing down to only, we're only going to be wounding 66% of the time now with a power fist. And bear in mind that a Space Marine will still get a 6+ save against it. It's not great. The power fists for the Imperial Guard have taken a huge nerf, which is a shame, because like I said, I love my Commissar power fists. One ray of hope is, hopefully, they will cost the power fist appropriately for guardsmen. Currently, we pay the same price for power fist as a Space Marine, which is stupid. In the old codex, we didn't have to, but the problem with that is that we don't get as much mileage out of a power fist as a Space Marine. Now, I really, 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 really hope that we don't have to pay the same price. I hope if Space Marines have to pay 20 points for power fist, Guard only have to pay 15. Because us wounding on 3s against most target is just rubbish. Honestly, it's just not worth it. No, it's just really just stupid. So that's the whole point of power fist, was to crump Space Marines. So anyway, in the guard anyway. So anyway, not going to go, like I said, not going to labour the point, but power fists aren't looking as good for the guard. I'll probably still take them, because they are a reliable way for us to wound Space Marines on a 3+ and still reduce their armour. But power mauls are looking pretty good, guys, is all I can say. So last thing really is the force weapons. Blah, blah, blah. Force weapons do D3 damage for every wound. There you go. D3, straight up. Grey Knights are going to be carving through those new Primaris Marines like there ain't no problem. And also, just to keep an eye out, the Reaper Chainsword on Imperial Knights now does a flat 6 damage to whatever it wounds. So that's basically the equivalent of D. It does 6 damage each wound. So it was already a given, but keep your tanks away from Imperial Knights. Also keep your Knights away from Grey Knight squads in close combat, because they'll just shred through it really quickly. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it's made a lot of sense to you. I really want to know what kind of close combat weapons you guys are thinking of taking for 8th edition. I'm leaning towards Power Sword and maybe Power Fist, just because I like Power Fists. But I am leaning towards Power Swords. What are you guys thinking? Are you guys thinking Power Mauls? Power Mauls could be good. I don't know. You tell me what you think in the comments. Okay guys, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.